Ankit, I have a question first for you. Where are you joining us from?
So, hi everyone. Good morning. I'm myself Ankit Sharma. I'm at a manager level right now with one of the big fours. I've been into the data privacy domain and the cybersecurity domain for past 6.5 years now, and it's been my bread and butter all this while. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to conduct this session and get questions, which probably gives me a new perspective towards the PIMS or ISO 27701.
I think Ankit and I am one of the very oldies in this field right now. I think looking at the recent field of privacy, I think we both are there from day one. So around 2017 when GDPR started, I think Ankit was there. I think before 2017 he was present in privacy since 16. And I think very few people would have done as many projects as Ankit would have done till now if we kind of collate all of it. So I think Ankit is here. I think finally he agreed, right? Thank you, Ankit, for first of all agreeing. And Ankit has been my senior, right? So I've been learning a lot from him. So thank you, Ankit, first of all, for joining the session, right, and helping
Thank you
everyone
for calling.
out with your knowledge. Before starting this session, I would just like to introduce myself as well. So my name is Akash Singh. I am also CEO and co-founder of Tsaaro. I am FIP, CIPP, CIPM, CIPT, also IAPP Advisory Board member. I'm also co-founder of Tsaaro Academy. The session today is around the ISO implementations that I have been kind of part of, but obviously I want Ankit to help me here, right? Because my knowledge would also be limited as much as he would have done. So there's a lot of learning for everyone on the session. So let's get ahead. Okay. So I think question number one, right, is do we require any prior knowledge of, I'm going to pose this question to Ankit, but before that, right, this question is for everyone. Do we require prior knowledge of ISO 27001 for implementing ISO 27701, the PIMS? So you have to give in a vote. The link in the chat is for Menti. If you just click there, you will see an option of voting. So this will help us understand on the maturity of the audience. Yeah. A lot of people have answered yes, right? So Ankit, I think we are in good hands, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, this shows that a lot of us who are joining this session have a basic understanding, or at least the basic understanding of what the standard is and how ISO 27001 is complementing in implementation of 27701. So until and unless we have the understanding of ISMS, it is difficult for us to implement PIMS. My my basic funda for privacy has always been that security is the driver for privacy. So if there is no security, then there will be no privacy for sure. So hence, it is important for us from the standards perspective and as well as from the concept perspective. ISMS or security, information security, complements privacy management of the information of data.
Right, Ankit. So basically, without security, there is no privacy, right? Yeah, that's
Essentially, right.
sure. So, Ankit, I think let's get this heads on, right? Before starting this, what is this ISO 27701 that everybody's talking in the world about?
So ISO 27701 got launched in or published in August 2019, and it was the need of the hour, to be very honest, for the entire industry. Why? Because when GDPR came in on 25th of May 2018, the whole world was into some sort of chaos because everybody had their own interpretation of the regulation. Once they interpreted the regulation, the implementation of the regulation was another task. And it was such a mammoth task that globally, everyone within the privacy domain recognized this challenge for the organizations and started coming up with guidances from GDPR perspective. Now, since we saw that this is a challenge across the globe, it made sense to have an international standard in place in order to manage the privacy information. So PIMS came into existence. Now, PIMS, as majority of the audience right now would already know that is an extension to ISMS. So we have 27001, we've had 27001, and everybody was looking at it, was working in order to get the certification and everything. But then the ISO body came up with another regulation, another standard, which is 27701.
Right, Ankit. I think summarizing this, because it was need of the hour to develop the central PIMS framework. So ISO 27701 kind of solved that problems. Okay.
Hmm.
So I have two questions for you. So question number
Right.
one, does getting certified with ISO 27701 mean that an organization is compliant with GDPR, CCPA, and subsequent regulatory laws?
Absolutely. So, in my view, if we are certified ISO 27701, then our journey towards the compliance of any of the regulation around the world, be it GDPR or be India's upcoming personal data protection bill or any regulation, whichever is applicable on our organization, it becomes an easier task for us to reach the compliance level for each of the regulation. Because just a short answer to your question, Akash, yes, but then there are certain further activities which are certain nitty-gritties within the regulation which we also have to look into in order to make sure that we are 100% compliant with the particular regulation. But this ISO 27701 is the right point to start for your compliance journey.
Right. Ankit, I think probably what inference I am taking out of this conversation is yes, PIMS, if we go for ISO, we get PIMS. If we get PIMS, we are closer to compliance with any privacy law, right? But that
True.
does not promise that it complies with that privacy law, because
Absolutely.
as such, a certification for any regulatory requirement is not there. Are we on the same page, Ankit?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. Okay. So why do you think we need this, right? Why is this needed?
Right. Right. Like I mentioned earlier as well. I mean, first of all, today I want to work. Imagine you work for an organization and the organization comes to you and says, I want to be compliant to a particular regulation, or I want to make sure, avoid the regulation, let's say, make sure that I want to be to be 100% sure that my the privacy of the personal information that I'm processing right now is is as per the international standards. Now you don't know what are the steps that we need to take. Let's say GDPR says 10 things, another regulation says 10 different things. So what do we do? Now this, to solve this problem, to give you the standard steps which is applicable on all the organizations who are handling PII information, this standard was developed to make it easier for the organizations to know that, okay, this is the control that I need to implement as per my role. Now, this standard not only calls out the various controls and talks about how you go ahead and implement those controls, but it also helps you identify whether you are a PII processor or whether you are a PII controller, which is a very, very important task. I believe in any journey, we should know what role we are playing in that particular journey, whether we are acting as a controller, whether we are acting as a processor, and then take the steps. Because I've seen organizations siphoning a lot of money in order to get compliant to a particular regulation without identifying what role is applicable on them, which turns out to be a waste of money at the end of the day or
Right.
extra.
I think I was just playing that joke as well, Ankit, a few days back, right? That have you? So basically, it was like somebody said that a good infrastructure is costly, and then the comment after that was, "Have you tried a bad infrastructure?" So yeah, I think that's exactly what you're saying, because the moment the strategy goes wrong, right, the money keeps on rolling. Key benefits of ISO 27701. If let's say somebody kind of takes this up, or maybe somebody has to present a case that this is important or not, then why do you think would somebody go for this, right? And especially, I think a lot of people are here from an Indian context. So my question to you again is an Indian context. Why would
Mhm.
an Indian company go for an ISO 27701? Would it even help them?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, okay, let me just avoid the regulation perspective, avoid the implications of not complying with the regulation, be it financial, be it reputational. But let me tell you one thing, that today's audience or today's customers are very aware of what their privacy rights are and are into the privacy factors. So privacy has now become or started to become an USP for the organizations. We call it digital trust. So it is important for the organization to instill and maintain that trust within the customer that their information is secure, their privacy is maintained at all times. And trust me when I say this, it has, from the initial days, like 10 years back, it was not a boardroom discussion. Now privacy has become, and along with security, has become a boardroom discussion. And organizations are increasing the budget that they are putting aside for compliance, for security, for privacy. Now why is that? Because every customer is looking for an organization which helps and guarantees and gives that comfort to the customer that their data is secure and privacy is maintained at all times. How do we do that? We do that with certain standards, right? ISO 27701. This empowers the data principles. So one is the digital trust, customer trust, right? Second, this entire exercise helps you when you go for ISO 27701. It helps in giving you a picture of your organization, helps you understand the data landscape, the entire within the ecosystem, what all personal information you are capturing, what all personal information you are processing, is that particular, and helps you question the fact whether you need that personal information. I'll just take a moment and give an example for an organization where I was working. It was my client, and what happened that they were signing those DPAs left, right, and center. They were getting those DPAs, data processing agreements, from their clients, and they were signing it because they want to continue their business with the clients. Now, without even realizing the fact that the data processing agreement has an extensive liability on the on my client. Now, when I went ahead and understood what their data is, what data they are capturing, what data they are processing, what data is required, we got to know that there were many data elements which were not even there in the ecosystem, and yet they agreed with the client that they will protect it. You don't have it, how will you protect it, right? So this exercise of key benefits of ISO 27701 helps you identify the personal information within your ecosystem and mitigate the risk accordingly. This also helps you again with your compliance journey. If you want to go for GDPR, if you want to go for PDPB, if you want to go for Australia's Privacy Act, or Philippines Data Privacy Act, any regulation in the world, it will help you in your journey. I always say that it's not a supplement to the regulatory requirement, it's a complement to the regulatory requirement. It complements that.
So, Ankit, I have one more question for you. I think
Yeah.
it's a very well summarized and pointed through, but there's one more question that is coming in. In which direction should an organization already certified in ISO 27001 should go for? Either ISO 27701 or individual regulatory compliances for a good data protection architecture?
Okay. Actually, this is a question which is a lot of situation. It's a situation-based question for the organization, and it depends on organization strategy ahead. I would say, in my view, it is, since we are already have done the major effort of ISMS of ISO 27001. There are certain additional or delta areas which are there for PIMS. I think I would suggest go ahead, do the PIMS exercise first. Once you do that, it opens the flow, or the it opens the flow for you to comply with any regulations. So for instance, since the territorial scope of every regulation, as we all know, is not only limited to their boundaries, it is outside their boundaries as well, outside their countries as well. So if you want to make sure that you have a scalable solution tomorrow, and you don't have to do this exercise again and again and again for all the regulations, it is viable that you maintain a baseline privacy framework in your organization, which is ISO 27701. And on top of that, whenever you get the applicability due to the extension of the business, or dealing with personal information of that particular country, whatever. You build upon that baseline framework, you build upon that baseline standard within the organization, which is ISO 27701. So short answer to your question, Akash, I would say go ahead, do this 27701, get certified. It'll give your clients a lot of comfort. It won't be a roadblock.
I think probably calling yourself GDPR compliant or CCPA compliant cannot be proved, right? So the
True.
only thing that can be proved is how close you are to, let's say, an ISO 27701. And I also don't think that, people kind of come to me and say SOC 2 privacy. Obviously, we do a lot of SOC 2 privacy engagements as well. But end of day, SOC 2 privacy will still have a privacy domain. But ISO is I think right now, the only certification that we kind of have in the market, fortunately, unfortunately, is ISO 27701. And somebody also posted a question on ISO 27002, the 2022 one. I think this is a question for you. So the question is upcoming ISO 27002 2022, which has
Okay.
got released. How would
Hmm.
it affect ISO 27701?
So I don't see a lot of difficulty. So with the new ISO 2702, I don't see a lot of difficulty in implementing ISO 27701, because in my view, the ISO, I mean, the essence of PIMS is that you already have the understanding or applicable, or you have already implemented the ISMS standard. Now, if the ISMS standard is getting changed, you only have to look into that fact. That is it. It is not at all impacting, in my view, the PIM standard, because PIMS controls are an extension to the NXJ of 27001, right? So it won't impact. So these controls from PIM's perspective would remain the same. As of today, they are the same. Only the NXJ from the 27001 or ISMS has got few changes within the standard. So when you look at PIMS is as is, no worries. But when you look at ISMS, if you're looking only at the security, information security aspect, then yes, there are impacts. Then yes, there are changes which you have to make sure that are as per the updated standard. One more point, Akash, I would want to bring in for the audience here. Maybe if someone has any questions around that, maybe they can ask as well. When we were talking about the key benefits of PIMS, one important aspect is that everyone in the audience might have seen this instance where the client, where our organization have been reached out by the clients and they want us to go ahead and start the business. However, they want us to be compliant to a particular regulation, GDPR or any other regulation, right? Now that becomes a roadblock for the business, because first they have to get the compliance. They would engage a consulting firm, get that going ASAP, get that hastiness in order to ensure that there is no friction to the business. Now, if you have PIM standard already certified, then I think your business will not hit a roadblock. You can straight away tell the client that, okay, we are PIM certified. You want this regulation, we understand, we will work on it, but let's start the business, because that gives the client a good comfort that already they're using the best practices which are accepted globally. So I think PIMS is one important factor there as well.
I totally agree with you. All right. And I think I have also kind of started the voting again
Okay.
in terms of understanding. Basically, I think the first question when we started was whether people know about the standard or not. But I think we have moved on to understand whether people actually know about the requirements and the implementation that it takes. I think a lot of people kind of come back saying that this is difficult and difficult to achieve, but in front of my eyes a lot of people have done it, even our clients have done it. So I don't think it's a far off thing. It's an achievable thing pretty easily, and it gives the most confidence to clients as when you're a vendor for them. And then go ahead. Okay, so let's see. I know it's related PIMS, but not sure about requirements and implementations. No, I'm not aware of ISO. Okay, no, no, there are too many no's now, and less yeses. So I think I hope we are touching the right points here. Not much. I am not okay. So would like to more from experts' point of view. Okay. So I think Ankit, I think people have started asking for your comments again on this. So we will get on to that height zone again. So,
Right.
okay, let's talk about some practical implementation points, right? Because I know that there are so many webinars that keep happening, right? But that touch of what will happen on the base level is never there. But we want to try to fix that. So, Ankit, I think point to you again. If we talk
Hmm.
about requirements and we talk about requirements and how it goes through in implementation, what are those top 5 6 requirements that you see from an ISO 27701 PIMS perspective?
So I think the first requirement which is there and which should be there for all the organization is, before we get into ISO 27701, I would suggest that every organization should have a plan in place in order to make sure that where we are heading, we have a roadmap. Okay. I mean, we should not get into ISO 27701 or for that matter, any compliance in an unplanned manner. It should be very well planned. Now, the second requirement, which also comes from PIMS, is that understanding the role. That is very important for every organization. Understanding whether you are a PII controller or PII processor. Within the PIMS world or within the ISO or ISMS world, we call it as statement of applicability. Statement of applicability essentially means that what role are you playing and what are the different controls which are there within the requirement or within the standard which are applicable on you. Once that is clear to the organization, now we know that there are certain set of controls that we need to implement. Within PIMS, it is, I think it's available online as well. Within PIMS, there are approximately 31 controls which are applicable if you are a PII controller, and approximately 18 controls which are applicable on you if you are a PII processor. So you see, it's half the applicability. So it's very essential for you to understand what role you are playing, because you don't want to put your effort, time, cost, money into doing something which is not even applicable to you. So that is one thing. Now, within PIMS, there are multiple requirements. One is privacy by design and default. The other one is how you transfer, share the personal information. The third factor is how you govern. Do you have a strategy and a governance within the privacy landscape of your organization? Now, how do you collect the personal information, use this personal information, and what are the different obligations you have for towards the data principles or PII principles in terms of PIMS? Now, these are certain domains where we have to look into. Uh, so within the strategy and governance of PIMS, there should be roles and responsibilities clearly defined and documented in order to ensure that everybody within the privacy office knows what their duty is, within the organization know what their duty is. I'll just give an example. I have designed a policy for data subject rights. All right. I have designed that policy. Now I communicate this to my entire organization, and then I have called out different roles which are required within that particular data subject while responding to the data subject rights, and what are the responsibilities. Now at the time when we get the request from the data subjects, it would be very clear for everyone that this is my role, this is my responsibility, I am required by the design of the organization to do this. So this helps make the entire process efficient. It helps in strict governance of the process on how you dealt with a particular instance. And within the PIMS, we also have concept of privacy by design and privacy by default. Now, privacy by design essentially means whenever you're designing something, be it a software, be it a process, anything within your organization, if you're designing, have that privacy by design concept at the back of your head while designing the particular thing. Maybe it could be a process or an application. And ensuring that the strictest privacy requirements are there when the application is used, or are there by default. All the privacy requirements or all the privacy settings within the application or within the design of a process should be there. There are other things within PIMS as
So
well.
I just have that query myself, right? I think that's something that a lot of clients ask me. So do we go with the strictest privacy requirements always, or do we go with the minimum privacy requirements? I think, what is your take, Ankit?
So my take is, when I say privacy by default, that means we should have the strictest privacy requirements by default for an application. Now, for it depends on the application itself, what are the capabilities, but to the maximum capability, wherever we do not need data or wherever we do not need certain information. For instance, uh, for a particular website, let's say Facebook or any other website, a social media website, our name and email ID should be enough. Phone number, location, my age, my dog's name, etc., are not relevant. The strictest privacy settings should be implemented when we talk about privacy by default.
Right. I have a question for you. How do we reconcile with the local laws with the standard when the standard has higher requirement? For example, consent, DSRM. So how do we reconcile the local laws with this standard when the standard has higher requirements? What is your take?
So I do agree. There could be instances where the requirements from a standard are stricter, higher than what a local regulation would uh, need. But then it is in the organization's discretion again, because nobody is asking you to go for 27701. It's, if you're not 27701 certified, I would not come and say, okay, I don't trust you at all right. But then again, there is no other way for me to validate whether you are processing the personal information in an internationally standard or acceptable manner. All right. So there could be instances where data privacy regulations within the country is lenient with respect to the standard. In my view, I would go ahead and do the ISO 27701. Why? Because any organization which has farsightedness or believes that their business would scale to a global level would need to have these particular standards or controls in place. So I can, for my, if I'm only looking at the benefit of regulatory requirement, then I can go ahead with the lenient local law. That's not a problem. But if I'm looking to make sure that my organization's business is scalable and at the same time is meeting the international standards, because if I want to compete with the international organizations, I need to be at their level. So it depends on how the organization's future or 5-year roadmap, 6-year roadmap looks like.
Sure, makes sense. I think very fairly put through. I am also looking at a lot of good questions that are coming in. So again, I'll just post one more question to you. So for privacy by design, what do we create for documentation perspective? Because an audit may be subsequent. So in ISO 27701, how does privacy by design play a role, Ankit?
I think it's a great question, and this is something we within the consulting firm also do on a daily basis, and assist our clients and help our clients in order to get that. So from the privacy by design perspective, there are multiple processes or there are multiple policies that you can create for your organization. Now, once you understand, so every organization, let's say if it's a IT enabled services organization, will have a SDLC guideline within their organization, which would basically is act as a guide for the developers on how to ensure secure development of the application. How we generally, or how I generally actually create this privacy by design policies is by embedding the privacy concepts into their existing secure SDLC policy. Now, why I'm not creating another set of documentation? Why I am embedding this? Because I think we would all agree that at the end of the day, policy is not the only thing that an organization would need. In order to clear the audit, you have to show the design and you have to show the implementation effectiveness as well, right?
Yeah, so it's not just TOD, it's TOE, right? In
It's
audit of ISO.
absolutely, it's not only TOD, it's also TOE. And when I create, or when we create privacy by design policy, we embed it with the secure SDLC policy. So the concepts, like for instance, I'll take one example of consent management, right? So while developing the application, we within the policy we can say that the consent management can be done via these 2 3 steps. What are those 2 3 steps? That whenever you create a form, at the end of the form there should be a consent box which is not pre-tagged, which has the privacy policy link and everything for the customers. Now once the client or the customer or the user does not checks in the pre-tick or does not checks that consent box, it should not move forward. Or if it checks that box, that it should communicate with the rest of the systems. So while designing and while integrating different systems within the particular application, we pass on this knowledge of the consent from the data subject. So that is one aspect. Second aspect is that while creating a particular application, we also mention that certain privacy, to in order to ensure privacy, you have to have those security measures around the application when the data is at rest, where the data is in transit, because most of the organizations may or may not use encryption or tokenization for PII from the efficiency perspective. Now later on, I mean, I have seen this in my practical experience that once the application is developed, I come in as a consultant, tell them that the data should be tokenized or data should be encrypted. It becomes difficult for the development team or the application team to get that without jeopardizing their efficiency of the application. So they don't have a lot of space to optimize that, and hence they go ahead and accept the risk associated with it, considering the cost or the investment that they need to take. Or else if they go ahead and do the investment on the application, they it would take some time for them to ensure that the application is optimized. So it's more of a rework for them. But when they look at our privacy by design, we already have those things mentioned in the design. While developing, my developer will look at the privacy by design and make sure that they have those areas of scalability. Again, I mean, if you'd noticed, I have talked about scalability in this entire webinar. And I think that's one of the key element every organization is looking. So privacy solution that enables you the scalability. This privacy by design policy would enable your scalability and gives you that space to move around, whether to encrypt, not encrypt, and have that functionality. You can have it off. You can for the time being, say they go, I don't need to encrypt the information. Later on, if you believe that I have now got sensitive information which I need to encrypt, you can just switch it on if you have the design in place. As simple as that, from the privacy by design concept.
Yeah. I think one of the things that becoming more and more lovely over the period of time is our privacy by design checklists and work, because it just kind of gets so technical, right? End of day, there's so many security controls that are there. And again, I think all the privacy professionals, I think, have already realized that they need to be security professionals first, right? So,
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. You would either learn it. You should learn it anyway, or else if you are in this domain, you would learn it in a hard way if you don't
yeah,
have that.
I think especially I was talking to someone as well yesterday, and we were talking about how DPIA is done. So we all come from a security background. So kind of when I perform a DPIA, I can think about an access control or similar control. But if somebody is not from a security background, then what is the result of a DPIA? It's nothing, right? Because you're just
Right,
telling everyone again and again that consent was not taken, or a simple issue, right? DSAR is not there, guys. Like I think we are past that, right? We are past that level. Now we are getting into process, right? Into depth of process to solve a problem rather than just calling out the same issues again and again. But the issue is that we are still talking about it.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I think it's it's sad that on it's a reality that right now these basic things of having DSAR and people talk. I mean, I don't know when was the last time I spoke about ROPA. I mean, because it was something which was by default, if you can say, like everybody had
Yeah.
that documentation now.
Yeah. If data
So
mapping is not there, then what are we even doing, right? That's
exactly, if you
yeah.
don't know what the data that you're dealing with, then there's no point going ahead and working.
Yeah. I think every privacy framework that is built on is on data mapping is the first one. So again, guys, I think we're short on time. And I'm just gonna let everyone this. I'm just gonna open this session for 5 more minutes, right? 10 more minutes for Q&A. So if there are any fire, right? If there are any questions that you wanna play right now, this is the moment, right? Can you please share the annexure? We cannot because it's a confidential Tsaaro document. So we will not do that. Okay, I need a PPT from previous session also. Okay, wow. It's in the YouTube link. If you go to YouTube, Saro, you can just have a look over there. It's everything is there, right? We have posted all the materials for free. How far SaaS space? See, it's not about being on cloud, right? I don't know why don't Ankit you take this question, yeah. The question is how far it can cover, how far ISO 27701 can cover risk for a SaaS based organization. Yeah, when everything is on cloud.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, initially, I mean, 5 years, 6 years down the line, I mean, I remember talking about cloud, people still understanding within India what is cloud and being very apprehensive of being on cloud. But nowadays, I don't, I don't see anyone using on-premise infrastructure. People are moving to the cloud. In 2019, when ISO 27701 or PIMS came into existence, it was independent of the deployment model that you have, be it hybrid, be it on premise, or be it on cloud. It's the same program that you have to run for all the type of deployments that you have. So I would not say that okay, for SaaS these controls would change, or for on premise these controls would change. No, the controls would only change based on your role. If you're acting as a controller, then there are different set of controls. If you're acting as processor, then there are different set of controls. But
Right.
it does not matter whether you're on
But I think we are going in a wrong direction when we say what type of applicability matrix is there, right? If you have data, it's end of discussion, right? Let's look at it that way. So moving on, I think I have a question again. So guys, I just want to kind of point this through. If you have any deep doubts or anything that we as a company can solve, right? Please reach out to me. We can have a discussion on this. Plus, there are questions like how do we do privacy maturity? Again, there is another privacy maturity model that we can probably take on in other webinars. If you want a deep discussion, reach out to me. I will take it up and we do this for a lot of people. Thanks a lot for this session. Okay. I really love when people are giving me feedbacks. So guys, if you have any feedbacks, this is questions to everyone. If you have feedback, please drop it to us. What we did good, what we did bad. I think especially what we did bad is something that we try to learn from. So if you can tell us, I think I would love that. And I would have a lot of respect for you that you helped me grow. So whatever we did wrong, please drop a text to me. I will, you know where to find me, right? It's simple. It's LinkedIn, right? Drop me a text and chat. Ankit, would you like to kind of wrap this up with a thank you note?
Sure. I think before I wrap this up, I'll there are a few more questions. I just opened the chat box. I'll just take one more questions. How can data privacy be implemented when data goes beyond our organizations, such PII data being shared with third parties? So I think this is an important fact that we are outsourcing a lot of our services, and with that, there is a lot of data sharing. Now, PIMS, like I mentioned, an I think 7.5 takes care of this, where you would get certain checks and balances from the international standard, in order to ensure that you are sharing the information or transferring or disclosing the information in a secure manner. So you can look into PIMS an Azure A.7.5, if I'm not wrong. You can do that. I would now concluding this session from my end. I would like to thank Saro and especially Akash for inviting me here. And I being here have learned a lot, and I've seen good questions coming my way, and this gives me a lot of comfort that I think I know about what I'm doing. So it's like a recheck for me as well, and it looks so good to see that people around us are also very interested, and they have actual practical problems, and I would love to connect separately as well in order to ensure that you get the solution what you're looking for. But this session has been a great session on a Friday morning for me, and thanks a lot, Akash, for inviting me here, and thanks a lot, Saro, and the team for arranging everything, and making sure that we deliver this to all our audience in the best possible manner we could. And like Akash mentioned, please feel free to share your feedback. I mean, I'm also open. Please tell me that, and please go ahead and give me your feedback. Tell me what are the different things that I can look on, or what are the different perspective I can get on ISO 27701, or on data privacy in general.
I think I will also give you the link, a YouTube link, and obviously, as all the influencers say, right, please press the bell icon. All right. Though we are not in that field, but still, the YouTube channel is being asked on the chat. So, okay. So, first of all, thanks a ton, Ankit. Second of all, everyone who has joined the session, thank you for showing trust in us. Thank you for asking questions. Because of you, this session runs. Because of your questions, we can answer. So, thank you for joining it. And obviously, we have upcoming webinars. I will see you again, right? And thank you, Ankit, for joining us. Have a nice day, guys. And I
Thank you, everyone.